disgorged its ragged cargo onto the sandy shores of Roanoke Island, a spit of land off the coast of what would one day be North Carolina, raw and untamed, where the air hummed with the cries of unseen beasts and the whisper of ancient secrets buried in the soil. Eleanor, barely 24, with sun-bleached hair and calloused hands from years of farm toil in Devonshire, had crossed an ocean on a promise. A new Eden in the New World, where her husband, Ananias, would claim land for Queen Elizabeth, and their child, Virginia, the first English soul born here, would inherit a legacy of gold and glory. But as the sails furled and the anchors plunged into the turquoise depths, a chill, unrelated to the sea spray, prickled her skin. This was no paradise. It was a graveyard waiting to be filled. Little did she know, in the span of 3 short years, her world and an entire colony of 117 souls would unravel into one of America's most enduring enigmas, the lost colony of Roanoke. A tale not of conquest or triumph, but of whispers in the wind, cryptic carvings, and the disappearance so absolute it defies the annals of history. What follows is no mere legend, but a tapestry woven from the threads of real journals, archaeological digs, and the faint echoes of native tongues. A story that has puzzled scholars, fueled ghost stories, and even inspired the birth of a nation. For in the shadows of those vanished huts lies a truth as startling as it is sorrowful. The New World didn't just claim lives, it swallowed dreams whole, reshaping the map of what we now call the United States in ways we're only beginning to unearth. The lion wasn't the first to kiss these shores. 3 years prior, in 1584, Queen Elizabeth's favorite courtier, Sir Walter Raleigh, had dispatched a reconnaissance voyage under Captains Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow. They returned to London with tales that set the taverns ablaze, an island paradise where the land smelleth so sweet as if it be the coast of some gentlewoman's screen, laden with grapes the size of plums, deer as tame as lapdogs, and natives so hospitable they draped the visitors in pearls and deerskins. Barlow's report, penned with the flourish of a Renaissance poet, described the Socotan chief Wingana, later dubbed Wingandakoya by the English, as a man of tall stature and comely proportion, whose people lived in palisaded villages of cedar and thatch, their fields bursting with corn, beans, and pumpkins. It was a siren's call to empire builders, promising not just tobacco riches, but a foothold against Spain's Catholic Armada. Raleigh, ever the visionary and ever cash-strapped, secured a royal charter in 1584, dubbing his venture the City of Raleigh in Virginia. By 1585, a fleet of 7 ships under Sir Richard Grenville arrived with 108 men, soldiers, artisans, scientists, to establish the first permanent English settlement. Among them was artist John White, a watercolorist whose brushes would immortalize the New World's wonders, Algonquian warriors in copper armlets, longhouses wreathed in smoke, and the iridescent flash of kingfishers over brackish marshes. But paradise soured swiftly. The colonists, haughty and ill-prepared, clashed with the locals. Wingana's brother-in-law, Pemasapin, turned hostile after Grenville's men raided Croatan Island for corn, executing 2 Socotan warriors in a fit of colonial pique. Starvation gnawed at the settlers. Salt-making experiments failed, turning their meat to mush. And when Sir Francis Drake's fleet appeared in June 1586, promising rescue from England, most bolted for the Tiger, leaving behind a skeleton crew under Governor Lane. John White, appointed governor for the second attempt, sailed home that summer to rally more hands, and women this time, to make the colony familial. He returned in 1587 with 115 souls, families, children, artisans. The Lion anchored at Hatterask, modern-day Ocracat, but storms battered them northward to Roanoke, where the aborted Lane colony's ruins moldered like forgotten bones. White's daughter Eleanor and son-in-law Ananias were aboard, along with laborers like Thomas Harriot, the polymath who had mapped the stars from the Roanoke's deck and cataloged 200 native words, including Osadef for roots and Chekwak for much. The landing was chaos wrapped in hope, They rebuilt the fort, a palisade of oak and pine, enclosing barracks and a chapel, amidst the live oaks draped in resurrection fern. Native scouts from the Croatan tribe, allies under Chief Monteo, whom White had knighted in a hasty ceremony aboard ship, brought baskets of maize and venison. But tensions simmered. The Hatterask winds howled like banshees, and the soil, sandy and leached, mocked English plows. On August 18, 1587, Eleanor gave birth to Virginia Dare in a thatched hut, the first English child in Virginia. White sketched the baptism in his journal, a circle of tallow candles flickering against walls of wattle and daub, the babe's wail mingling with the distant hoot of a great horned owl. It was a sacrament of survival, whispered prayers for a future that would never come. Yet supply woes mounted. The Lion's master, Lane's old nemesis, refused to linger, demanding return cargo of timber and pitch. White, torn, cast lots with the council. On August 27th, he departed for England with a promise: resupply by spring. He wrote, "We committed the care of them to God," his quill trembling on the page. Eleanor waved from the jetty, Virginia bundled in her arms, as the sails swelled and the ship slipped into the haze. England, meanwhile, teetered on invasion's brink. The Spanish Armada loomed, 130 galleons bristling with cannon sent by Philip II to crush Protestant heresy. Raleigh's ships were commandeered for defense. White's pleas to the Privy Council fell on deaf ears amid the frenzy of Drake's counter-raids. It wasn't until 1588, after the Armada's fiery rout in the Channel, English fireships turning the night into inferno, that White secured passage on the Hopewell. But gales and privateers delayed him further. By 1590, 3 years after his departure, he returned, not to Roanoke, but to the Chesapeake, where the Hopewell's captain had detoured to trade. Storm-tossed again, they limped to Roanoke on August 18th, Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday. The sight that greeted them was apocalypse quiet. The palisade sagged, its timbers splintered and overgrown with briars. Houses stood empty, doors ajar, hearths cold as stone. No smoke curled from chimneys, no children's laughter pierced the cicada drone. White's men fanned out, calling names into the salt marsh. "Eleanor, Ananias, Virginia!" Silence answered, broken only by the lap of waves on the sound. They found iron tools rusted in the grass, a few barrels of salt pork gnawed by crabs, and, most hauntingly, a child's bone chess piece, half buried in the sand, as if dropped mid-game. Panic yielded to puzzle. No signs of violence, no arrowheads embedded in walls, no charred skeletons like those from the Lane-era skirmishes. The houses bore the print of feet in the dirt, human, recent, but led nowhere. Then, on a post in the fort, carved in faded Roman letters, Croatan. No distress signal, no cross of alarm as White had instructed. Just the name of Monteo's Island, 50 miles south, where the friendly Croatans dwelt. Yet we had no wharf boat, he lamented, and the wind was against us. They waited days, firing cannons to signal, but the horizon stayed barren. A hurricane smashed the Hopewell's pinnace, another gale pinned them. By September, with winter jawing, they sailed for England, the mystery unsolved. White never returned. He died in 1593, his watercolors, smuggled home in 1586 by Harriet, now treasures in the British Museum, depicting a world that had blinked out. Raleigh, bankrupted by the venture, abandoned Roanoke to legend, turning to Irish plantations. The site faded into Carolina lore, tales of white Indians with blue eyes, whispered by Tuscarora elders in the 1700s, or the Hatterask band's mantle of friendship with lost souls, as chronicled by Jamestown settler John Smith in 1608. But the truth, pieced from 20th century digs, is more startling than fiction. In the 1990s, archaeologist David Phelps unearthed European artifacts on Harris Island.
slate roofing tiles matching Roanoke's, a rapier hilt etched with English rose and crown, and a 16th century gold signet ring, its bezel bearing the coat of arms of the Kendall family, gentrified Devon folk aboard White Ship. Carbon dating places them post-1587, suggesting assimilation, not annihilation. Genetic studies in 2011 by the Lost Colony DNA Project traced Lumbee and Hatteras descendants to anomalies. 30% carry haplogroup G, rare in native populations but common in Western Europe. Oral histories from the Kauri tribe speak of Koniquas, white people, marrying in after a great storm, their children blending into villages where English lullabies mingled with Algonquin chants.